Hello, hello. Welcome, everyone. Yeah, do a little clap. Why not? We're here. Hello. All right. Hello, and welcome to Missoula's 34th annual MLK Junior Day Community Celebration. Whoop, whoop. And let's also give a warm welcome or applause to Josh for his beautiful piano playing to welcome us. Thank you all for joining us to this new location for the celebration to celebrate the life and legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. My name is Sierra Pinnell, and I'm going to be your MC for tonight. They keep asking me back, so if you've been here, you go, oh, she's familiar. Yep, I'm here again. Yeah. Woo! I started getting involved with Empower Montana when I was finishing up my undergraduate degree in social work. I started as a practicum student, and then I just loved them so much that I more or less forced them to hire me, and I worked as a youth program specialist and the director of youth programs, and even though I left, I still hold them so close to my heart, so I'm so excited to be able to be here today. There are printed programs in the back, maybe. There's some people that have some, so I hope you got them. There's also, I think, there will be maybe a QR code at some point if you want a virtual one. So let's get started. I love how this celebration always has a theme and a quote to kind of center our time together. So this year, the theme is courage in action, and the guiding MLK Jr. quote is, "There comes a time when the cup of endurance runs over and humans are no longer willing to be plunged into the abyss of despair." I'm going to read that one more time just to really let it sink in. There comes a time when the cup of endurance runs over and humans are no longer willing to be plunged into the abyss of despair. So I hope you guys can really hold that in your hearts and your minds for our time together. With that being said, I'm going to welcome up John Lund. He's the pastor of UCC Missoula and a longtime member of the MLK Planning Committee who is going to give a land acknowledgement. So welcome, John.
Thank you, everyone, for being here today. It's really good to come together and gather and be together in these times. The land acknowledgement we're using this year comes from UCC Missoula, developed by their Truth and Healing Around Colonization Committee in consultation with local indigenous leaders. In the interest of truth and healing, we acknowledge that the Salish and Calypso people have lived on and cared for this land for thousands of years. As part of Western expansion, settlers claimed this valley, including the land upon which this place was built. As witnesses to the historical and ongoing harm done by colonization to indigenous peoples, lifeways, and the land, we commit to learning from the original peoples of this place, to building friendships, and to taking action to work towards a more just and equitable future. Thank you.
Wow. So we got a bigger venue. It looks like we need a bigger boat now again. Incredible. Thanks for being here. I'm here to introduce our next speaker. The Native American community in Montana has stood in unison with the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.-led campaign for civil rights since its inception. As we will discuss later tonight, Native legislators in Montana played a central role in the state's eventual recognition of the holiday. With these thoughts in mind, it's an honor and a pleasure to introduce to you Martin Charlo. Martin was born and raised on the Flathead Indian Reservation. He grew up in Arlee, where he was homeschooled until the 5th grade. He graduated from Arlee High School and went on to attend the University of Washington, majoring in political science. While there, he served on the Associated Students of the University of Washington Board of Directors. Martin continued his formal education at Salish and Kootenai College, taking Salish language and majoring in American Indian Studies. Martin is guided by the teachings of his elders that taught him to help all people that were in need. Martin's lineage is ingrained in Montana history and is borne out in how he comes by his name. His father, Victor Charlo, a self-described poet, writer, and all-around good guy, in many quarters is revered as a national treasure. Victor was politically active and served with Dr. King on the Poor People's Campaign. His great-grandfather was Chief Charlo. Martin's grandfather was Tony Charlo. His great-grandfather was Chief Martin Charlo, chief of the Bitterroot Salish peoples. His great-great-grandfather was Chief Charlo. His great-great-great-grandfather was Chief Victor, and his great-great-great-great-grand, did I get 4 greats in there? Great-grandfather was Three Eagles, who famously met with Lewis and Clark in 1805. Martin continues his legacy of advocacy fighting for minority rights during college protests and later in the missing or murdered indigenous peoples advocacy. Martin has worked for the Confederated Salish and Kootenai tribes his entire career and was elected as the Pablo District Council in 2019 and started his first term in 2020. He was re-elected to the CSKT Tribal Council in December of 2023 and started his second term in January of 2024. Please join with me in welcoming Martin Charlo.
Hesquet, or actually Hesiyakoke, Lemlench Pesia. Good afternoon. Thank you, everyone. As Murray said, my name is Martin Charlo. I'm an enrolled member of the Confederate Salish and Kootenai tribes. As he said, I'm also lineage comes out of the Bitterroot. This area that we're on here has been an important area for our people since time immemorial. And standing on this site, speaking a few of our words in our language is always important to me to kind of lead off how we do things. This idea of the quote. I'm sure the kids and everything will go more into that, but the letter from jail that Dr. King wrote was something that kind of I went through and looked at, and thinking about kind of where we're at in the world. I've been doing this for a long time too. I know she spoke to that, and I thought I was getting the hook last year, so I appreciate coming back this year. We think about our future. This is kind of our time for our prayers for our people, and so we look forward to what we think about, what we pray about, and that's always looking to the future as far as how we can make things better. We always want to leave our footsteps covered. We want to leave places better than we found it, and that's kind of where we're at in a point in time here where we're kind of say midway through something right now, and the important time is now, where we're coming upon the times when things get really hard, and the times that we really got to fight. And that's something that our people, I don't want to get into the history of the people, the last people in the Bitterroot Salish coming out of the Bitterroot, how we were forced out. I always look back and wish we would have fought. We would have fought harder, longer, and we still do. We still have our connection, but in this place and time where we're looking around the world, Dr. King spoke to it, where it's easier to tear something down than build it up. And in the last few years, things have been torn down, and this is our time to stand up and really fight, and so we can rebuild. Well, not even rebuild, but we're going to have to start from scratch at times, and we're going to have new ideas and things that are outside the box. And in order to do that, we have to all work together. You have brothers and sisters who are being forced illegally out of this country that is ironically stolen from, everyone. It was one of those things where, no one's an immigrant on stolen land, right? And so this idea where our brothers and sisters are out there, being oppressed and being, held without due process, and all the things that were promised in the foundation of this country, and all the things, the core values that we've had from time immemorial, where we treat people better than at times than we're treated, or what we have. The richest man in the tribe was the poorest, and that was usually the chief, and that was because he gave out the things that they needed. And now is the time to look for the people, our allies, our people of color that have been always minorities in this country. And it's funny, I try to, put myself in people's shoes and in time and history in my life. And, we fought for so much, we've made so much progress, and in a few years, it's been really kind of cracked. The foundation feels like it's kind of crumbling, but we can always rebuild, we can always fight, and going into the next few years, that's what we're gonna do. So, Lem Lemch, everyone, Lem Lemch Pesia, have a great day, and thank you all for coming today.
Thank you, Martin, for those words. One of my favorite things about working at Empower Montana was just their commitment to youth leadership. And if you needed any evidence of that, this next person is just a shining example. I'm really excited to welcome back Lizzie Millslow to sing Lift Every Voice and Sing. Lizzie is a college student and community organizer. She has been a member of the Youth Advisory Council since 2019 and is also a co-founder of ABBY, which is the Association of BIPOC Youth. She is a lover of theater and music and believes in the power of art to tell meaningful stories. Lizzie has consistently advocated for young people across Montana and continues to make an impact through mentorship, political engagement, and the arts. So let's welcome Lizzie.
Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring. Bring with the harmonies of the rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it We have come over a way that with tears has been watered. We have come treading our path through the blood of the soil. Facing the gloomy paths till now we stand at last, where the white gleam of our bright star is cast.
So I think I told you last year in grade school, where I grew up in Cincinnati, Ohio, that was a song we sang every morning. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the history of, actually a lot about the history of the Martin Luther King Holiday Committee here in Missoula. For those of you who saw me shuffling through papers and you saw the number of papers I had, don't be discouraged. The font is 22. So. The campaign to establish the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday as a federal holiday kicked off on April 8, 1968, just 4 days after his assassination. Representative John Conyers, a Democrat from Michigan, introduced the motion, and it wasn't until 1979, a full 11 years later, that the motion finally made it to a vote on the floor of the House of Representatives. The bill was endorsed by then President Jimmy Carter, but unfortunately failed with a tally of 252 in favor and 133 against. Nevertheless, those who supported the bill didn't give up. Artists such as Diana Ross, Gladys Knight, actors Harry Belafonte, Sidney Poitier, Burt Lancaster, and Tony Curtis, along with countless other members of the Black Congressional Caucus, and scores of common folk all demonstrated their backing for the bill. If you're familiar with the 1981 song, Happy Birthday by Stevie Wonder, that was penned by Stevie Wonder, but it was written in honor of Dr. King and in support of the holiday. In 1983, the bill was brought back to the House. This time, it got the green light. But the battle was far from over. It still had to get through the Senate, where there were some strong opponents with some even accusing King of being a communist. That would become a very, very common theme through this period. Despite the pushback, the bill made it through, and then President Ronald Reagan signed it into law in November of 1983. The first federal holiday to honor King was celebrated in 1986. The three-year wait was due to the law specifying that the holiday was observed on the third Monday of January, which naturally wasn't there at the time. In Montana, the MLK holiday wasn't officially recognized until 1992. Its eventual acknowledgement was largely thanks to the efforts and hard work of Harry Fritz, a University of Montana professor, I believe of history, and also a state representative. He collaborated with Ulysses Doss, the then president of the the African American Studies program, which was called the Black Studies program back in the day. They both advocated for the holiday's commemoration. Montanans from all walks of life had championed passage of the bill. The Montana chapter of the NAACP, the Montana Association of Churches, the Quaker Worship Group, the Helena Indian Alliance, along with countless other politicians, college students, university folk, joined with a score of Montana residents, including a 10-year-old named Andy Gordon, a fifth grader at Helena, at Jefferson School in Helena. I had occasion to find Andy. Andy still lives in Helena, and in a conversation I asked him, I said, why did a 10-year-old feel it was important to do this? he said that basically, I'm paraphrasing him, but he said that the things that Dr. King stood for crossed all boundaries, and they were ageless. So it didn't matter how old you were. If you believed in those things, then you needed to stand up for those things. We can use more 10-year-olds in our life, I think. In line with its federal challenges, the Montana bill faced an uphill battle as well, too, in the state legislature, with several opposing King based on that same old trope of him being a communist. In light of the presumed conflict, there was an offer made to create a holiday honoring Nez Perce Native American chief Joseph instead of King. At the time, Montana's 3 American Indian legislators hotly rejected this plan. Democratic State Representative Andrew Russell, a Crow Indian, who was there when King was marching from Alabama from Selma to Montgomery in '65, said that the detractors were engaging in what she termed then, a familiar term now, diversionary tactics. Stuck deciding whether to pay tribute to a civil rights leader or a well-known Indian, American Indian lawmakers came up with a clever alternative. We choose both, said Democratic State Senator Bill Yellowtail. The Indian lawmakers pushed for the bill that would create the King holiday and suggested a renaming of then they had proposed, the legislators at the time had proposed the Chief Joseph's holiday as well, as I said. They said we can change that to Native American Day, and that would take the place of Columbus Day. Chief Yellowtail said Columbus was, among other things, a scoundrel and a pillager, and Columbus Day had always been a sticking sore point with Native Americans. One of the proponents of the Chief Joseph Day holiday was Senator Jerry Noble, who stated, and I quote, "Apparently the Native Americans have a problem with Columbus. I was never aware of that," unquote. After much deliberation, the bill passed. Senate Bill 78 passed in 1991, with the House voting 64-36 and the Senate voting 39-11. The bill was signed by then Governor Stan Stevens, and Montana formally recognized the MLK holiday in 1992. Celebrations leading up to the '92 holiday were happening all over the state, and had actually started early the previous year, but really picked up in '91. In Missoula, the new University of Montana president, George Dennison, decided to set up a committee to honor King's legacy. The committee was named the University of Montana Dr. Martin Luther King's Holiday Committee. And Ray Carlisle, is Ray here tonight? I don't see Ray's generally always here. Ray Carlisle, former director of the UM's TRIO Student Support Services, chaired it. The first event focused on Black Student Union, the Black Studies Program chair, and a list of several other campus and community members. In 1994, UM converted to a semester system, which eventually meant that students were going to be there as the holiday was taking place. During that period, several of the community members who had sat on the university committee decided that the holiday should be celebrated exactly on that day. And with that, they came up with the Missoula Martin Luther King Jr. Holiday Committee. Key among those original members were Betty Wing, Ray Carlisle, Ralph Stone, Casey Schilke, folks from the Jeanette Rankin Peace Center, and shortly afterwards, UM Professor George Price, as well as yours truly. In retrospect, although not specifically designated at the time, we were operating off of what I would term a platform built on accurate historical representation and anti-racism. Both the distortion of truth and the purposeful erasure of history undermine society's capacity to comprehend itself, learn from the previous mistakes, and seek justice. When records are concealed, altered, preserved selectively, the voices of the marginalized communities are frequently silence, permitting detrimental narratives to continue unopposed. That manipulation of historical accuracy reshapes collective memory, affecting identity, power dynamics, and perhaps, in many ways, policy in manners in which favor a select few and undermine the ability of us all to act collectively. Nigerian author Chinua Achebe reminds us that unless the lion has his own historian, the role of the hunt will always favor the hunter. The concept of anti-racism was most recently articulated well by author and activist Ibram X. Kendi. He states that an anti-racist is an individual or group of individuals who advocate for anti-racist policy through their actions or who express an anti-racist ideal. In my view of this model, I find it valuable to combine the often hyphenated term anti-racist into one word. That word acts as a verb, a word which indicates action. This action means demonstrating a true dedication to a cause through various forms of expression. This can involve writing, creating music, sharing opinions, joining public protest, peaceful public protest, or participating in activities and discussions about difficult topics that require taking a clear stance on a controversial subject. Such a strong commitment to a cause demands that one stands on the knife blade edge of an issue and chooses on which side they want to step off on. It demands that we must collaborate with people of color who are the most impacted by these issues. An anti-racist mindset urges us to keep educating each other about the complex interactions within and between races, using that knowledge to push our common goals forward. Finally, an anti-racist ethos emphasizes the need for a transformative learning experience, meaning a shift in our thinking that truly reflects our reasons for engaging in actions that embody the change we desire. Committee members have come and gone over the years, but they have remained steadfast in their belief in the principles of justice, inclusion, diversity, and equity, even in the face of widespread challenges in what some have called, and also in what some have called weapons of mass distraction. Today, the committee coexists as a grassroots community-based effort, and we are proud and thankful for the organizational assistance and support of the folks at Empower Montana. There are a number of Missoulians who graciously volunteer their time on our current committee. When I call your name, would you please stand? This year committee consists of Mike Bryan. Mike's already standing back there. Save your applause to the end, please. We've got a lot of folks to get to. Thank you for that, though. Khadijah Davis. I'm not sure if Khadijah's in town. She's in Helena. Apparently I'm being ignored. Chris Young-Greer, stand please. John Lunn, John standing back there. Chloe Lyons, Lonnie Nielsen, Paul Renault, Regime Seabrook. Regime's in the kitchen cooking. Many of you will notice that I'm not cooking this year, which I'm incredibly happy about. No, I'm really sad about it, sure. Tobin Miller-Shear, Tobin's out of town. Jayton Simpson, who's standing there. Oh, there's Jayton. Sylvie Tower, Heidi Wallace, and again, yours truly. To the Missoula community, we acknowledge we cannot do this work without your alone, and we appreciate your continued physical, emotional, and financial support. Thank you.
Thank you, Murray. I always love hearing you speak, and I always get something different out of your telling of the history, so thank you. I'm really excited now to welcome back the Missoula MLK Community Choir. It is made up of all volunteers from the Missoula community, and it is facilitated, the performances and volunteers are facilitated by Robin Kendall and John Lund, and is directed by Dr. Christopher Hahn with Alice Williams accompanying the piano. And they're going to be singing two amazing songs. They're going to be singing Be the Change by Laura Furnell, text by Mahatma Gandhi, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and Matthew 5:15. And then they're also going to be singing Ride on King Jesus, which is a traditional spiritual arranged by Moses Hogan. So they're going to come on up, so just sit tight, and we're excited for them. Yay.
Your MLK Choir. quite a crowd. Love seeing it. I am here to introduce our keynote speaker. Damien Chase Begay is an associate professor of social epidemiology and indigenous health in the University of Montana's School of Public and Community Health Sciences. Dr. Chase Begay's research focuses on incorporating indigenous traditional health knowledge into contemporary Western healthcare delivery settings. In July of 2024, he received a 5-year implementation science grant from the National Institute on Drug Abuse to rigorously adapt an evidence-based substance abuse prevention intervention for urban indigenous young adults in Montana to include traditional cultural and ceremonial practices. He will test the intervention at 5 urban Indian health centers throughout Montana. He also has a Health Equity Scholars for Action grant from the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation to explore the scope, application, and structure of indigenous research methodologies in Western research settings. As a social epidemiologist, Dr. Chase Begay studies how social drivers, such as education, income, and housing, affect health. He also explores how these effects differ between various groups of people based on their race, ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation, and other characteristics. He is an unapologetic lover and defender of science and was one of the lead organizers of the Missoula, yes. I will wait for that. And was one of the lead organizers of the Missoula Native Mental Health Research. The Missoula, where am I here? There we go. March for Science. His work has been published in the Journal of American Indian and Alaska Native Mental Health Research, the Journal of Integrative and Complementary Medicine, and most recently, the Journal of the American Medical Association. Previously, Dr. Chase Begay was the first indigenous person to serve as the city county health officer of Missoula, Montana. Before transitioning to that role, he worked in the American Indian health field for more than 2 decades. He is the former executive director of All Nations Health Center in Missoula, as well as the National Council of Urban Indian Health in Washington, D.C. It is my great honor and pleasure to introduce to you one of my favorite professors at UM, Dr. Damien Chase Begay. Please help me greet him.
Toshkani Toja, and good evening. I am very happy to be here with you all. My name is Damien Chase Begay. I am Mandan and Arikara, which are 2 of the 3 affiliated tribes of the Fort Berthold Reservation in North Dakota. And I am deeply, deeply grateful to be back here with you today. Last year, I had the honor of offering some opening remarks at this gathering, and I spoke about Black and Indigenous solidarity, about shared histories of resistance, shared struggles against injustice, and the belief that our liberation has always been interconnected. The response that I received afterward was humbling, and it's the reason that I'm standing here today. So I want to begin by saying thank you, not just for the invitation, but for the willingness of this community to engage honestly with hard truths. That willingness matters. It mattered in Dr. King's time, and it matters now. This year, we're reflecting on a quote from Martin Luther King Jr. that feels especially urgent in this moment. There comes a time when the cup of endurance runs over, and men are no longer willing to be plunged into the abyss of despair. This is not a comforting quote. It's not an inspirational quote in the easy way that many of us might prefer for MLK Day. It is a warning. Dr. King wasn't praising patience. He wasn't celebrating resilience. He was naming a breaking point. And to understand this warning, we have to be honest, really honest, about what endurance means for this country. Endurance is often treated as a virtue. We praise it, we celebrate it, we reward it with words like grit, strength, and resilience. We tell stories about people who made it through, as if survival alone were evidence that the system is working. But endurance is not infinite. Endurance is what people rely on when justice is delayed. Endurance is what communities are forced to practice when systems fail them. Endurance is what fills the space where dignity should have been guaranteed. When we celebrate endurance without asking why it was required in the first place, we risk confusing survival with success. Part of how I think about this comes from my professional training. I'm a social epidemiologist, and I'm so glad, Chris, you must have practiced so many times. All right. In plain terms, social epidemiology asks a very simple question. How do the conditions that we live under, our policies, our institutions, our histories, get inside our bodies and shape who gets sick, who suffers, and who gets to live longer lives? Social epidemiology reminds us that health is not just about individual choices or biology. It's about the environments we've built. It's about who is protected, who is exposed, and who is expected to endure harm as the cost of doing business. And let me describe a little bit more what I mean by this. If a neighborhood has clean water, safe housing, access to green space, and plenty of health care, people tend to live longer. If a neighborhood has pollution, underfunded schools, unstable housing, and constant stress, people tend to get sick more often and die sooner. That's not because one group is more responsible than the other. It's because exposure accumulates. Endurance accumulates. And accumulation is often invisible until it isn't. Think about what it means to live for years, even decades, under conditions that keep your nervous system on high alert. To worry about whether the water that you and your children are drinking is safe. Whether your child will be safe and come home alive when you send them to school each day. Whether a routine interaction in your neighborhood might turn into something more dangerous. In social epidemiology, we understand that stress is not just an emotion, it's a biological process. Chronic stress affects blood pressure, immune response, sleep, metabolism, mental health, and when stress is constant, the body never fully recovers. And when that stress follows predictable patterns by race, by income, by place, it becomes a population-level health issue. This is why endurance is not neutral. It comes with a cost. And that cost doesn't show up all at once. It shows up slowly in higher rates of chronic disease, in shorter life expectancy, in exhaustion that can't be fixed by individual effort alone. So when we talk about endurance, we're not talking about a person's attitude or character. We're talking about exposure. We're talking about what happens when people are asked to live their lives inside systems that were never designed with their well-being in mind.
That's right.
That is what accumulates. And that is what eventually spills over. Social epidemiology also teaches us something else. Harm is often misunderstood, not just denied, but misdiagnosed. We are very good at identifying individual problems. This person smokes, that person drinks. We are much less comfortable naming structural problems. When someone gets sick, we ask what they did wrong. When a family struggles, we ask why they didn't try harder or do more. When a community experiences violence or poverty, we ask what's broken about them instead of what's been done to them. And when social movements demand change, we often ask, who is being inconvenienced, rather than why was harm allowed to accumulate in the first place? And that misdiagnosis matters, because when we misunderstand the source of harm, we end up ignoring and often protecting the very conditions that caused it. For Black communities in this country, endurance has meant surviving generations of enslavement, of segregation, of racial terror and state violence. It meant being told again and again to wait for equality, to trust gradual progress, and to accept small reforms instead of transformation. Endurance has meant watching promises be made and then broken, rights declared and then denied in practice, opportunities dangled and then withdrawn. As an Indigenous person, and especially as someone who's mixed race with a Native mother and a white father, I want to state clearly that I recognize these histories not only as something I study, but as something I've lived in relationship with my entire life. I have seen firsthand how different communities are asked to carry different burdens. And I've seen how proximity to power can either be used to help lift those burdens or to maintain them. For Native communities, endurance has meant surviving land theft, forced removal, broken treaties, boarding schools, cultural erasure, and policies designed to eliminate us entirely. It has meant being expected to disappear quietly, and when that didn't happen, to be grateful for whatever scraps of recognition were offered. Endurance has often been demanded, rarely has it been chosen. And when Dr. King spoke of the cup of endurance running over, he was naming that moment when people decide they can no longer carry a burden they were never meant to bear in the first place. But what happens when endurance is mistaken for consent? One of the most dangerous misunderstandings in this country is the belief that endurance equals acceptance, that silence means agreement, that patience means satisfaction, and that survival means the system is working. But systems learn, and when people endure injustice quietly, systems learn that injustice is sustainable. Healthcare systems learn which lives can be neglected. Education systems learn which children can be under-resourced. Economic systems learn which workers can be exploited. And environmental systems learn which communities literally can be poisoned. Over time, endurance becomes built into design. And when people finally say enough, enough, the response often is shock, as if that overflow appeared out of nowhere. But overflow isn't sudden. It's cumulative. It's the result of years, often generations of harm that was tolerated because it was concentrated in particular places, among particular people, again and again. And when the cup finally runs over, that overflow is not a threat. It is a signal. When the cup runs over, it looks like protest. It looks like refusal. It looks like disruption. And too often, like we are seeing right now in Minnesota, these moments are framed as chaos, as disorder, or as extremism. But from a public health perspective, and especially from a social epidemiological perspective, Overflow is a signal. It's a symptom of untreated injustice. It's what happens when structural problems are allowed to accumulate until they become impossible to ignore. The civil rights movement didn't emerge because Black Americans suddenly became impatient. The American Indian movement didn't emerge because Native people suddenly became angry. Movements like Black Lives Matter and Standing Rock didn't emerge because communities suddenly wanted attention. They emerged because endurance had been stretched beyond what any human community should be expected to tolerate. Dr. King understood this. That is why he warned our nation, ignore injustice long enough, and despair will not stay contained. Recently, a claim was made in public discourse that the civil rights movement led to white people, quote, being very badly treated. That claim by Donald Trump deserves careful attention, not outrage, but correction, because it is not true. The civil rights movement did not strip white Americans of any legal rights. It didn't remove systemic access to education, to housing, or to employment. It didn't subject white communities to segregation, to disenfranchisement, or to state-sanctioned violence. What it did was challenge exclusivity. It ended legal guarantees that some people would be protected because others were being excluded. That's right. And from a social epidemiological perspective, that distinction matters. Justice movements don't create harm by expanding rights. They reduce harm by removing systems that concentrate risk in specific populations. When segregation ended, white Americans did not become sicker, poorer, and shorter-lived overnight just because Black Americans gained access to public life. When voting rights were enforced, white communities didn't lose political voice. They lost the guarantee that their voice would outweigh others by design. That's not mistreatment. That is the loss of unearned insulation. And it is often misexperienced as harm by those who were never asked to endure the system's cost in the first place. From a population health perspective, the civil rights movement is associated with improvements in health, in education, labor protections, life expectancy, and not just for Black Americans, but across our society. Today, cleaner water, safer workplaces, stronger protections against exploitation, greater accountability in public institutions. These are not zero-sum outcomes. The idea that justice for some requires suffering for others is not supported by history. It's not supported by evidence. It's supported only by fear. Not fear of being harmed, but fear of losing advantage. That's right. And when fear is confused with injury, history gets rewritten in ways that inexcuse justice rather than confront it. If overflow is a signal, then the real question becomes, what do we do once we hear it? That question brings us back to solidarity, not as an ideal, but as a responsibility. Last year, I spoke about solidarity between Black and Indigenous communities, about moments when our struggles aligned and our movements supported one another. Those moments mattered. They still matter. But the moment we are in now asks something more of us than recognition alone. It asks us to slow down and look honestly at what solidarity requires once endurance has been exhausted. True solidarity asks different questions. Who is being asked to endure what others would never tolerate? Who benefits from that endurance staying invisible? And what would it mean to redesign systems so that the cup never fills to the point of overflow? Solidarity at that stage is not about shared slogans, it's about shared responsibility. Yes. And responsibility brings us to a choice in every community. And as a social epidemiologist, I would say that this has held true over time and space. there are people who are asked to endure more harm and others who have more room to move within the system. Responsibility is not about blame. It's about what we choose to do with the power, the access, and the safety that we have. Dr. King was clear about this. He didn't ask people with power to feel guilty. He didn't ask people with power to feel guilty. He asked them to stop being comfortable with injustice. He asked them to stop being comfortable with injustice. He warned us about the danger of silence, of moderation, and of always waiting for a more convenient time. Responsible participation looks like listening without defensiveness. It looks like believing communities when they name harm. It looks like taking risks, not just holding opinions. And it looks like supporting solutions led by those who are most affected without needing control or credit. Solidarity doesn't mean everyone experiences harm equally. It means everyone takes responsibility in proportion to the power they hold. And that responsibility matters because systems don't change on their own. I want to take a moment here for us all to pause and reflect. I know that conversations like this can sometimes leave us rushing to conclusions. What do I think? Where do I stand? What should I do next? But reflection asks something different of us. It asks us to sit, not with answers, but with honesty, to notice what feels familiar in what we've heard and what feels uncomfortable, to notice which parts resonated immediately and which parts we might have wanted to move past more quickly or maybe not hear at all. Social epidemiology teaches us that patterns matter more than moments, and the same is true for moral life. Most injustice doesn't persist because people actively choose harm. It persists because conditions are allowed to repeat themselves quietly, predictably, year after year. Endurance becomes normal. Disparities become background noise. And eventually, we stop noticing what we've grown accustomed to. Reflection interrupts that process. It asks us to consider not only what we believe, but what have we learned to tolerate. Each of us lives within systems we did not design, systems that shape where we live, how we work, what we worry about, and what we're protected from having to think about at all. And none of us stands completely outside of those systems. Reflection doesn't ask that we see ourselves merely as heroes or villains. It asks us to see ourselves as participants, to ask quietly and honestly, where have I benefited from things staying the same? Where have I been asked to endure less, and where have others been asked to endure more? What have I come to accept as just the way things are, even when I know they shouldn't be? These aren't questions meant to be settled in a single moment. They're questions that shape how we move through our world over time. Reflection reminds us that responsibility doesn't begin with grand gestures. It begins with attention, with noticing whose experiences are treated as urgent and whose are treated as routine, with recognizing when patience is praised in place of justice, with understanding that endurance is not a sign that harm has ended, it's often a sign that harm has been absorbed. When we allow ourselves this kind of reflection, something important shifts. The story stops being about us and them. It becomes about conditions and choices, about which burdens will be carried forward and which ones can finally be laid down. Reflection doesn't resolve tension, but it can keep us from rushing past it. And that matters because the work that Dr. King calls us to was never about speed, it was about direction. Before I close, I want to acknowledge something honestly. After last year's remarks, I received a great deal of encouraging and positive feedback, and I'm deeply grateful for that. But I also received one piece of feedback that has stayed with me. Someone shared that my words and my tone felt angry or off-putting to them. I want to name that not to defend myself and not to ask for reassurance, but because it matters how messages land, especially in conversations like this. I will say plainly, if any part of what I've shared today has felt too sharp or too unsettling or too hard to hear, I understand that reaction. But if that's the case, I want to invite you gently to look past the tone and stay with the substance. Because the message here is not about anger. It's about accumulation. It's about endurance. And it's about what happens when harm goes unaddressed for too long. In social epidemiology, we pay attention to signals, not because they're comfortable, but because they tell us something important about what's happening underneath. Sometimes those signals are quiet and hard to hear, and sometimes they are urgent and loud. Urgency can sound like anger when we're not used to hearing it, but urgency is not the same thing as hostility. My hope today is not that every word felt easy. My hope is that the larger message came through, that endurance has limits, that justice is not a threat, and that responsibility is something we share. If you find yourself reacting strongly, positively or negatively, I would encourage you to stay curious about that reaction. Often, that's where the most important work begins. And I like to remind myself that Dr. King spoke about the abyss of despair, but he didn't believe despair was inevitable. Rather, he tells us we must accept finite disappointment, but never lose infinite hope. I believe that for Dr. King, hope was not passive, and it wasn't patience. It was the discipline of continuing to act even when the outcome was uncertain. Despair is what happens when endurance is demanded without relief. Hope is what happens when responsibility is shared. The opposite of despair isn't optimism, it's action. It's policy, it's repair, it's the courage to redesign systems so that survival is no longer the highest aspiration we have to offer one another. The question before us today is not whether injustice exists. We know it does. The question is whether we are willing to stop asking some communities to endure it for the comfort of others. Because when that cup of endurance runs over, history shows us two paths. One leads deeper into division, fear, and despair. But the other leads slowly and imperfectly, but honestly, towards shared responsibility and transformation. Dr. King tells us the cup will not stay full forever. What we do next, right here, together, Missoula, will determine whether our cup will overflow into chaos or whether it will overflow into change. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Damien. We loved hearing you last year, and I loved hearing you even longer this time. You always have just such great words of wisdom that I'm glad I think this is being recorded because I definitely will need to watch this over to fill my cup, I think. We're going to transition a little bit to a little bit of music, a little bit of connection, hopefully a lot of giving. Since 1992, Missoula has come together for this community-led and community-funded celebration honoring Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s legacy, one that builds connection and inspires action. Through powerful speakers, moving musical performances, and creative expressions from our youngest community members, this gathering reminds us that the dream of equity, justice, and human rights is alive in our corner of Montana. You can support three kind of different ways. There is a QR code in your program. You can also visit the merchandise table at the community celebration or the social, or there's going to be some baskets being passed around if you want to if you have any physical giving. Your presence here today honors Dr. King's legacy, and your gift of any amount helps ensure the celebration continues to foster education, collective action, and community connection for generations to come. And if you've been thinking, oh gosh, Sierra, like I could really stretch my legs right now, you're in luck, because we are so excited to have Andre and Josh perform a few songs for us, and we ask and invite you, I suppose, during this first song to feel free to stand up, introduce yourself to those around you, and if you feel comfortable or inspired to do so, feel free to share a hope that you hold for our community. So take it away.
You guys know this one, sing along if you do.
And I'm not able to trust myself in it and carry the word around.
There's something happening here. What it is ain't exactly clear. There's a man with a gun over there.
So you guys gonna go to
Telling
dinner?
me
I'm not.
I got
Dave's
to
ready to go now. He said,
be
I'm
there.
staying.
I think it's time we stop. What's that sound? Everybody look what's going down.
I'll see you later.
The bell line's being drawn. Nobody's right if everybody's wrong. Young people speaking their mind, getting so much resistance from behind. Think it's time to stop. What's that sound? Everybody look what's going down. Yeah. Play from the go.
No, you don't.
That's right.
Welcome back, everyone. Thank you so much, Andre and Josh.
Josh, baby.
So
I
good.
love you guys every day.
Woohoo!
This is our house. This is our town. That's every day. Love you guys.
Thanks, Andre, and thank you, Josh. I'd love to welcome you all back. We're running a little bit behind, but I think we're having so much fun, so it's okay. I would like to welcome up the County Commissioner, Josh Slotnick. Is he here? Is he here? Perfect. Welcome up, Josh.
Good evening, everybody. Good evening. Man, where's Dr. Chase Begay? That was amazing. That was absolutely incredible. So I will be mercifully super brief, just a few minutes. I am the great-grandson of refugees 3 generations ago. And as I speak to you right now, my grandchildren are playing in my living room. 6 generations. I think about my refugee grandparents, my Bubby and Zadie, and their response to the demands of their present and what that means for my grandchildren right now. And in thinking about this, brings us to MLK Day and the demands of this present. What is this present, this moment right now, asking of us? As we speak, not only are my grandchildren playing in my living room, but Americans in Minneapolis are shooting other Americans in their defense of refugees who want to be Americans. Wrap your mind around that. This moment, there are 2 provocations happening in Minnesota. One of them very local to Minnesota and works very well with MLK Day. Tens of thousands of people in Minneapolis are resisting. They're bearing witness. They're documenting, and they're getting in the way. And they're taking very big risks, risking their bodily health, autonomy, physicality. They're risking their lives. The provocation is to fight back with equal violence. That is exactly what the administration is hoping for. If those tens of thousands of people can hold fast, bear witness, document, be in the way, but not raise a fist, they will demonstrate to the world real humanity. And that demonstration on a large scale, as we saw in the civil rights movement, can turn public opinion and turn public policy and change culture. We should all hope they can do it, and they are taking big, big risks. That is the local provocation in Minnesota. But I said there's 2. The other provocation we are feeling right here, it is all over the country. It's this. When we see people and run into people who understand what's happening in Minneapolis very differently. Maybe they're wearing a red hat. How do we respond? The provocation is for us to respond with anger and division. You go that way, I'm going this way, don't push me. That's the wrong response. In the same way, it's the wrong response to take up arms in Minneapolis. The right response, and Dr. Gay used this word, is curiosity. When we run into people who see those events very differently, our response needs to be, and this is such a challenge, curiosity. How is it you came to feel this way? What happened to you? And in these conversations, maybe we can find some humanity in each other. And that's what heals division. That is the antidote to polarization. If we are not to be at each other's throats, we need to be looking each other in the eye. And that is the demand of this present. And that is a demand we can all meet, even though we're a great distance from Minneapolis, because 30% of our brothers and sisters see things very differently than the people in this room, and we run into them all the time, and most of the time, we go the other way. The challenge is to go towards those folks, to make it a we, not to go away. I'm going to leave you with that, some hope. That was a call to arms, but arms like this. This is the call to arms. Thank you.
I am here to tell you a bit about the Montana Black Collective of Missoula. Formed in the spring of 2020 during the racial tension that was gripping the nation, our members sought to find ways of reaching out and connecting to the Black population of Missoula with an eye towards developing a sense of community and a defined support network. To that end, we met and determined that in order to move forward, we had to build a structured organization aimed at developing community, the community that we desired to see. We desired to see that community alongside creating a sustainable platform to dismantle racism within our community. The Missoula Black Collective of Montana seeks to engage and empower people committed to stimulating living in the Missoula community with intellectual, political, spiritual, and social growth among our members and fellow community members, and to the deconstruction of racism in all forms throughout the larger community. At Montana Black Collective Missoula, our core values are the foundation of our organization. We believe in education as a means of empowering individuals and communities. We value cross-cultural understanding, let me repeat that, cross-cultural understanding and compassion, recognizing that diversity enriches our society. It does not deter from it. We are committed to dismantling racism and promoting equity in all aspects of life, including economic justice. Civic engagement is a key value for us, as we believe that participation in the democratic process is essential for creating positive change. We promote social justice by advocating for policies and programs that benefit marginalized communities. Our efforts to promote transcendence aim to uplift individuals and help them reach their full potential. To create a welcoming and inclusive community that values diversity, promotes equitable outcomes for all. And at the Montana Black Collective of Missoula, we are committed to our core values and are proud to work towards a more just and equitable society. We hope that you will join us in achieving this goal. Please scan our QR code on some of the tables out front, and you are more than welcome to pull any of us aside as part of this organization and ask for the questions. Thank you so much for being here. We look forward to seeing you next year.
Thanks, Chris. One of my personal favorite parts of the celebration is the youth keynote address. And this year's keynote address is by Blake Schulte, who is a junior at Sentinel High School here in Missoula. He plays football and track and is involved in the theater scene at the local Missoula Children's and Community Theater. You may have seen him in Matilda the Musical and Let It Be, as they're also his favorite shows. He hopes to bring attention and knowledge to racial injustices and challenges that still exist throughout the country. So let's please welcome Blake.
Thank you for having me. As you guys just heard, my name is Blake Schulte, And I can't remember the last time the truth about Black history and culture in America was taught throughout the schools. And we are led to believe that the history consists of slavery, the abolition of slavery, segregation, Martin Luther King having a dream, and then bam, equality and all is well. But that couldn't be further from the truth.
That's right.
There is no mention of the strategic, systemic racism that persists today, of the ways that systems were purposely built to keep us down, poor, and uneducated. Systems that still exist, and systems that many are fighting to keep in existence today. We read a couple of books in middle school and maybe learned a little bit about the Underground Railroad or Rosa Parks, but there were never any deep discussions about the topic, which horrified me. I mean, America is so good at racism that before instituting apartheid, white leaders in South Africa studied the US in order to perfect their version of segregation and white supremacy. Many of you are probably familiar with Trevor Noah. He's from South Africa and biracial, and he writes and talks about being born a crime. For reference, he was born in 1984. His parents, a Black mom and white dad, could have been arrested for their relationship, for having a child of mixed race in their own mother country. Those ideas came from here, from our home. Their country is still recovering from the harmful racist narrative that they were fed based partly on the example our country set. And how sad is that? And when we learn about the civil rights movement, it's taught as if it was an isolated event with one leader. We weren't just exposed to many events within and the many leaders who fought for equality and justice. And the fight goes on today.
Yes, yes.
We also aren't taught enough about the countless contributions Black Americans have had on the American society's growth. Everyone knows George Washington Carver, but what about Katherine Johnson?
Yes, yes.
Or Dr. Charles Drew? Yes, there is a lot that can and should be learned at home, but given that Black history and culture truly affects every American in some way, our school systems have a duty to educate.
That's right.
Maybe more people would grow up and appreciate all that Black individuals and culture have contributed to their lives. From music and medicine, from literature to science and agriculture, we are innovators, risk takers, educators, and survivors. Miseducation can guide an entire universe in the wrong direction, and we have been poked numb with it. If I have no sense of self, then I will have no motive to better the problems that have persisted for centuries. But an educated population is a compassionate one, empowered and self-aware. And there's one thing I should make clear: it is not just the Black community's responsibility to educate others on the problems. It should be a multicultural effort, all hands on deck. These truths need to be highlighted in education, the depths of the agony that our people went through, the systems designed for our failure, and how the little actions kept the fight moving, how the people, little or big, stood together to change the country for things that shouldn't have to be changed and still aren't. I believe that most people want an anti-racist America, but building that takes education and acknowledging the source and consequences of racist ideas, and that they continue today. Too many people are uncomfortable with that. Education about the truths of racism can help open the doors of dialogue and understanding. For too long, our story has been told by the oppressor. And now we have to watch as they try to erase what little truth we have been able to preserve. Great visionary leaders like Martin Luther King Jr. and John Lewis are gone, but their legacy lives. We now have to carry the torch. We have to continue the work they started, and it starts with educating our youth. And it's needed now as much as ever. And I'd like to close out my speech with a poem by Langston Hughes entitled "I Dream a World." I dream a world where man, no other man will scorn, where love will bless the earth, and peace its paths adorn. I dream a world where all will know sweet freedom's way, where greed no longer saps the soul, nor avarice blights our day, A world I dream where black or white, whatever race you be, will share the bounties of the earth, and every man is free. Where wretchedness will hang its head, a joy like a pearl attends the needs of all mankind. Of such I dream my world. Thank you.
Hi, let's give one more round of applause for Blake. Incredible speaker. Hi, my name is Jess Moniz Hernandez, and I'm the Director of Youth Engagement with Empower Montana. And we have, we have the honor of facilitating the Youth Art and Essay Contest that happens every year. And really, it's my bosses, our Youth Advisory Council members, who are the ones that choose our quote and choose the winners of this contest. So up here with me are Marin, a practicum student working with us at Empower Montana. And two representatives of the Youth Advisory Council, Drew Eblin and Patience Mack. And they'll be up here helping us with our contest, but I'll let them introduce themselves.
Hello, I'm Patience. I was introduced to Empower Montana through the Association for BIPOC Youth and the Empowering Youth Leadership Institute. After that camp, I ended up becoming a Youth Advisory Council member, and I am now working as a peer facilitator for EPIC. My involvement with Empower Montana has helped me figure out how to channel my anger, frustration, and exhaustion towards all the things happening in this country into tangible, positive change and action. And I will now hand the mic over to my lovely fellow YAC member, Drew.
Thank you, Patience. Hi, I'm Drew. I'm currently a sophomore at Sentinel High School. I'm a member of the Youth Advisory Council, and I am also the Montana Gender and Sexuality Youth Coordinator. I was introduced to Empower Montana by my mom. She randomly told me over the summer I was going to be attending Empowering Youth Leadership Institute, which life-changing, by the way. So if you have any teens, grades 9th through 12th, you should totally send them. Don't tell them about it, though. I'm joking. After going to camp, I was asked to join Youth Advisory Council, and then after that, everything unraveled from there. I was the MC at Diversity Day with Patience last year. I got invited to be the Montana GSA Youth Coordinator, so that was pretty exciting. And I'm just really heavily influenced by my fellow YAC members and Jess and Heidi and all of the Empower Montana staff, just to make the world a better place for youth and just people in general.
Thank you, Drew and Patience. As Jess said, my name is Marin. I'm a BSW Practicum at Empower. We have flyers and brochures at the table in the back with more information. Now we're going to move on to the Youth Art and Essay Contest. So the Empower Montana Youth Programs team has the great honor of presenting today's awards. The MLK Planning Committee would like to honor Lynn Schwanke for her years of service to Missoula's Martin Luther King Jr. Youth Art and Essay Contest. Through her years of service to the Missoulian, Lynn was integral to the success of the Youth Art and Essay Contest from 1992 up until her retirement. We honor her dedication to the education and artistry of youth. This year, the MLK Day Planning Committee and Empower Montana sponsored the annual art and essay contest for youth to showcase their creativity and thoughts in response to the following quote from Dr. King. "There comes a time when the cup of endurance runs over, and men are no longer willing to be plunged into the abyss of despair." We had so many amazing submissions this year. There were over 200 submissions from schools all over Missoula County, and we want to thank all those who submitted pieces, as well as Empower Montana's Youth Advisory Council for taking the time to be our judges. The artwork and essays of the contest winners are published in today's copy of the Missoulian online and will be featured at a First Friday exhibit at Spectrum at Missoula Public Library. This is an open and free space we are cultivating for each other.
No, the displays are up on the side.
Oh, okay. The displays are not up at First Friday. They are over on the side if you want to take the time to look over there. So, this is an open and free space we are cultivating for each other. The artwork and stories we're about to see and hear will depict various lived experiences, and we asked that you please show respect for these students' pieces. We hope you enjoy the video featuring this year's winners.
Yeah, we will be reading the winners by category, first, second, well, honorable mention, third, second, first. And this is to the youth winners. We are going to ask you to be prepared to hear your name, so you're ready to come up to the stage thing, kind of. And then you are going to come over to Marin and Jess to receive your award. And then we're going to ask you to stand in front, right over there, for about 5 seconds. You can count in your head so we can take a picture. And then, yeah, I think that's it. And then I'm going to hand it over to Patience to start reading them out.
Oh, yeah. Come on to this side. There's no ladder over here, so don't come on to this side. For art honorable mentions, for 6th through 8th, we have Desmond Selman. All right. And for 9th through 12th, we have Jason Doucette.
For essay honorable mentions, we have kindergarten through 2nd, Zoe Visity, and then we have 3rd through 5th, Peyton Crawford.
All right, for 3rd place art winners, for K through 2nd, we have Charlie Frost. All right, and for 3rd place art winners, 3rd through 5th, we have Liam Bensal. All right, 6th through 8th, we have Alessandra Espinola. All right, and for 9th through 12th, we have Finn Norby.
Hold on, let me flip the page. Oh, wait. Never mind, don't listen to me. For second place art winners, we have K through second Brooklyn Stusenberger. And then third through fifth, we have Emma Jomer. And then 6th through 8th, Opal Miller. And then 9th through 12th, Sienna Polson.
All right, second place, where are we? Sorry. First place, my bad. For first place art winners, we have for K through second, Raven Baker. All right, for third through fifth, we have Maggie Mathia Butau. All right, and for 6th through 8th, we have Isla Elizabeth Glenn Brake. All right, and for 9th through 12th, we have Kellen Dick.
Okay, now we're moving on to the essay winners. For kindergarten through second, we have Cannon Henson. All right, and then third through fifth, we have Kaylin Lossetter. All right, and then 6th through 8th, we have Oliver Silverman. And then 9th through 12th, we have Hannah Takasuai.
All right, for our second place essay winners, we have Eberly Abicht. And that was K through second. For third through fifth, we have Calais Walls. For 6th through 8th, we have Diosa Adrian. 9th through 12th, we have Khadija Ali Al-Kahil.
Okay, now we turn the page. Okay, and then first place essay winners, we have K through 2nd Grayson Felton. Okay, and then we are also going to give the chance for the winners of this section to read their essays if they would like to. 3rd through 5th, we have Emerson Walsh.
So my piece is, I feel that you shouldn't be judged by the color of your skin, just by your character. That is why I believe Martin Luther King Jr. is important. He showed people that everyone should be treated equally. He said that deep down, the people of color's endurance were running out because others were putting their rights second and telling them they can't do this or that. And I don't think that's right. And so now I hope that because of Martin Luther King Jr., no one will be plunged into the abyss of despair.
Okay, and then for 6th through 8th grade, we have Poppy Hunt Gladish.
This is a poem I wrote. Lowen. Lowen Joan was born on September 12th, 2025. I just met her for the first time. Her eyes were wide open and she didn't cry. I smelled her forehead, this tiny little girl. I see her pretty smile and I'm at peace for a while, but then I start to think of all the hate in this world. Her Latino and Latina friends will be scared of being deported, and she will grow up with the fear of war and the fear of being drafted, just like we all are now. The abyss of despair is lonely. Fill it with love, joy, happiness. Fill it with the smell of wet grass on a spring day. Fill it with the homemade rolls your uncle made, a recipe passed down from your great-grandmother. Fill it with languages, once forgotten, ones we use today. Fill it with latkes, fill it with jingle dresses, fill it with fuzzy socks. Fill it with concerts, screaming and crying lyrics you heard at your lowest lows. Because maybe, just maybe, the abyss of despair needs to be filled, and it's longing for someone to notice and care for it, until the abyss of despair turns into a mountain of life, one people can climb with their loved ones, one we can all fill. Because me, you, your kids, Lowen, need a world to live in, one where we aren't scared and we feel safe and welcomed. So let's get it.
And then the last one that we have is 9th through 12th, Jillian Milkus.
Congratulations to all the contest winners, and thank you to all those who participated. This will happen every year, so keep an eye out in October for our emails and social media posts if you'd like to participate again or share the word with your friends. And please check out all the winners displayed here over to the right of the event center. Thank you.
You don't have to say anything.
So thank you all for being here. My name is Jayton, and I have a little piece of poetry I'd like to share with y'all as we prepare for some good food. This piece I wrote a couple years ago is called Be My Ally. Be my ally, teacher. Help me get through. I don't just want an A. I'm gonna earn that grade too. Be my ally, cop. Help me get through. And when you pull us over, don't pull guns on us too. Be my ally, judge. Help me get through. It's the same as he did. Give me that minimum too. Be my ally in business. Help me get through. Am I just a checkbox D&I title to you? Be my ally, neighbor. Help me get through. I want to pull up to the park and not see Karen times 2. Be my ally socially. Help me get through. And call racist shit out when it's exposed to you. That's right. Peace.
All right, thank you, Jayton, and thank you for the Youth Art and Essay Contest awardees. That was so fun to see. I'm sure you're thinking, boy, am I starved. And I, again, have very good news for you. We would love to invite you all to join us for a shared meal, rich storytelling through food, and meaningful connection with our Missoula community. This year, we are sadly and celebrating the passing of the torch. Like Murray said, he's no longer doing amazing food for this event. But we are excited to have Regime Seabrook, Marilyn Gomez, and my little brother, Brandon Pinnell. Whoop, whoop. They are going to honor the roots of this tradition while also bringing their own stories and flavors to the table. So this is also a new location, not just this celebration, but the food as well. So the new location for this community social and dinner is the First United Methodist Church. It's at 300 East Main. And it's about, if you're thinking, oh, I could really take a brisk walk, it's only 2.5 blocks, so you can do that. But if you're like me and you're tired from sitting here and you want to sit somewhere else, to be taken to sit somewhere else, there is a shuttle. So it's going to take you from the lobby here to the church. It's going to run from 5:45 to 8, and it's going to be chauffeured by Heather Lyons. Is Heather here with us? Yes. Let's give a round of applause for Heather. Woohoo! So Heather's going to be doing that shuttle. You can leave your cars in this hotel parking lot. They'll be totally fine and safe. We also hope to see you at upcoming events that are in the program. One that I just wanted to highlight, since it's coming up first on February 4th, is the 2026 Martin Luther King Jr. Lecture / UM's President Lecture Series. It's on Wednesday, February 4th from 7 to 8:30, and it's titled Resistance, Resilience, and Radical Love by Dr. Regina Shan Stoltzfus. So we hope to see you there. Thank you for coming. Go get food. Goodbye.